Part 7, the plagues. Exodus 4:24 states, "And it came to pass by the way in the inn," which means it happened incidentally or on a side note in the inn. The Bible is written thematically and not always in chronological order. One example is that Abraham is 99 years old in Genesis 17, and later in Genesis 20, his wife Sarah is much younger when they journey to Gerar, and Abraham gives her to King Abimelech, saying she is his sister. This must have taken place before the facts presented in Genesis 17. The verse of Exodus 4:23 ends with the theme of the firstborn son. God says, "And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn." In the same context, Moses, the firstborn son of Pharaoh's daughter, is almost slain by God in the next 3 verses. Afterwards, he's back in the Mount of God where he was before, when God talked to him from the burning bush. Of course, he has not left yet. He meets Aaron, his brother, there, and they go to Egypt after Moses has asked his father-in-law for permission to leave. He then takes his family with him and puts his wife and sons on a donkey. Once arrived in Egypt, they gather the elders of the children of Israel, and Aaron speaks for Moses. Aaron is a circumcised representative able to speak freely, the intermediary between Moses and God's people, as well as between Moses and Pharaoh. They show the signs and wonders they will perform and give hope to the people of Israel. The Hebrews bow their heads and worship God. Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and declare that he is to let God's people go to worship him 3 days' journey into the desert. Pharaoh challenges God by saying, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go?" Exodus 5:2. Immediately he commands the workload of the Hebrew slaves to be increased by no longer providing straw for the bricks they are making. They are still required to manufacture the same amount, yet they search for stubble to use instead of straw. It is impossible. The Hebrew officers Pharaoh had set over them are beaten for not fulfilling the daily quota. They complain to Moses and Aaron. Moses returned to the Lord and asks why the people are entreated with this evil and why he has been sent. God replies in Exodus 6:1-8, "Then the Lord said unto Moses, Now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of his land. And God spake unto Moses and said unto him, I am the Lord. And I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of God Almighty. But by my name Jehovah was I not known unto them. And I have also established my covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you a God. And ye shall know that I am the Lord your God, which bringeth you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you in unto the land concerning the which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it for an heritage. I am the Lord. The word remember in Hebrew means more than just to remember. It also means an action will follow to support that memory. When God remembers Hannah, as mentioned in the earlier part of this narrative, or Rachel in Genesis 30:22, he acts upon that remembrance. Both of the women conceive and bear a son. In this text, God remembers the covenant he cut with Abraham and confirmed with Isaac and Jacob. God is acting upon that memory now. Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh. Aaron casts down his rod. It becomes a serpent. Exodus 7:11-12. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. And Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. God is sovereign. The book Egyptian Mythology, A Guide to the Gods, Goddesses, and Traditions of Ancient Egypt by Geraldine Pinch states, time itself was depicted as an endless snake that swallows up the hours. Unquote. Pharaoh is given warning. time is up. Pharaoh refuses to let the people go. God tells Moses to go to the river in the morning and turn the waters of Egypt into blood in Pharaoh's sight. Aaron is to stretch out the rod over the Nile. It will turn all their waters, even all their vessels, pools, and ponds to blood. The fish will die and stink. This is a reckoning. For at least 80 years, the Egyptians had been throwing the newborn sons of Israel into the river. The previous Pharaoh directed them to do this. Exodus 1:22. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. The Nile River, the lifeblood of Egypt, runs red with the blood of the murdered children. The Egyptian color red, which they attribute to the desert and chaos, as opposed to the black, the good color of the land, after the annual inundation of the Nile. The Egyptians are a visual people. Red is also the color of the crown of Upper Egypt, a direct reference to Pharaoh. The river runs red for 7 days. Succeeding is a plague of frogs which came up from the rivers, streams, and ponds in vast numbers and covered the land of Egypt, including their houses. In the book Egyptian Mythology by Geraldine Pinch, frogs are mentioned. Quote, the Roman writer Pliny the Elder noted the Egyptian belief that frogs were spontaneously generated from the mud left by the receding Nile flood. Unquote. The picture I see is the inundation of the Nile is in its last stages. The waters recede and all the good land that is used for planting and sowing is covered in red instead of black. The frogs, which are the usual harbinger of this time of planting and sowing, are turning Egypt into chaos. Pharaoh appears to relent and calls Moses and Aaron to entreat God to take away the frogs from him and his people. He says he will let the people go that they may sacrifice to the Lord. Moses tells him that there is none like unto the Lord, our God, and asks when he should entreat the Lord to take away the frogs, so that they may remain in the rivers only. They agree on the next day. After the Lord does what Moses asks, the frogs all die. They are collected in heaps, and again there is a stench from the dead animals. Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Following is a plague of lice. Aaron smites the dust of the land with his rod, and the dust becomes lice throughout all of Egypt. The magicians cannot reproduce this wonder, and they tell Pharaoh that this is the finger of God. Aaron no longer has to be the go-between between Moses and Pharaoh and Moses and the children of Israel. The Israelites have accepted Moses as God's spokesperson. Aaron still accompanies Moses, who is also the only one who can entreat God directly to take away the plagues. Next, God plagues Egypt with flies, but separates his people in Goshen. The children of Israel will not be afflicted. Further quotes from Egyptian mythology by Geraldine Pinch. The naked Horus child tramples on crocodiles and squeezes the life out of dangerous creatures such as snakes, lions, and antelopes. And, quote, Osiris is granted sovereignty over the dead and Horus over the living. End quote. Each king was acclaimed as a living Horus. End of quotes. Pharaoh, the living Horus king, the embodiment of the celestial falcon who has defeated dangerous animals, cannot subdue insects, such as lice and flies. After each plague, Pharaoh appears to give in, but then hardens his heart and refuses to let the people go. The following plagues are directed at the livelihood of the Egyptians: a grievous murrain, a pestilence affecting domestic animals, horses, donkeys, camels, oxen, and sheep. The livestock dies. Another plague follows, affecting people and animals with boils, brought about by the ashes of the furnace which Moses sprinkled toward heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. This is followed by hail so severe, mingled with fire, that it kills any person or animal left in the field, destroying the herbs, the flax, and the barley, and felling trees. The word says the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. Once again Pharaoh relents and calls Moses, who lifts his hands unto the Lord, and the hail and the thunder cease. Pharaoh's heart hardens, and he does not let the children of Israel go. Pharaoh's servants beg him to let the people go. Pharaoh angrily has Moses and Aaron driven out from his presence. God sends locusts to eat up the residue that remains from the hail. The locusts cover the earth and invade the houses of the Egyptians. Pharaoh calls Moses and Aaron back and begs them to take the locusts away. God sends a west wind which takes away the locusts and casts them into the Red Sea. The plague of locusts is followed by darkness, a palpable darkness. God sends darkness throughout all of Egypt for 3 days, excluding the dwellings of the children of Israel. The book Egyptian Mythology states under horrors, quote, later texts point a dazzling picture of the one of dappled plumage who opened his eyes to dispel darkness and chaos. Pharaoh is powerless. He cannot bring chaos back into order. God is sovereign. God tells Moses that he will bring one more plague upon Egypt, the death of the firstborn of Egypt, man and beast. When this happens, Pharaoh will relent temporarily and finally let the people go. Before this can happen, each family of the children of Israel is to take a lamb without blemish and keep it for 14 days, and the whole congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.